Chapter 58. Monday morning, Tom first went to the Child Services office to get an update on how the weekend went and was pleased at the news. More than half of the children had already been adopted, and there were still hundreds of applications to go. Most of the families with no children had adopted, including the new identity of Rudolphus Lestrange. Narcissa had stood in for Bellatrix during that blood adoption. A lot of the childless people in that age bracket were unmarried and wanted to give it a chance to find a spouse first, including Rabastan and Barty's new identities. Rudolphus was posing as a cousin to the current Lestrange line, and the line would live on through him just as Barty was for the current Crouch line of which he was the last. Rabastan had taken on a new family name and would start a new line. They would need a lot of new lines anyway. Once Tom finished his check-in, he made for the courtroom, arriving 10 minutes before the trials were set to begin. Tom had stricken the law that precluded the use of vertiserum, so the trials were pushed through quickly. Most of them got short sentences in Azkaban until they got to the last two. One of them was one of his elite. While he'd pardoned crimes committed in the name of the war, and even a lot of the personal crimes they'd committed thinking he would reward them given his temporary insanity, this one had gone way too far. He'd enjoyed raping and murdering children. Muggle children, yes, but children just the same. He had gotten rid of most of the sick Death Eaters like that after he'd gotten his sanity back, but this one managed to slip through his radar. He did appreciate the chance to prove his good intentions by throwing the book at the disgusting man. He wasn't at all surprised when the sentence was death, and would have all but demanded it anyway even if it wasn't. He even requested to carry out the execution personally, which was granted. As much as he would personally rather torture him for hours first, he would do it the right way. He waited until the order was signed by the chief warlock and head of law enforcement before adding his own signature. Once it was fully legal, Tom pulled his wand and cast the killing curse right there in the courtroom. This minister wouldn't be seen as a coward hiding behind a desk, that was for sure. He would end up getting a little bad press over it, but for the most part it was seen as a good thing. The last trial was of Dolores Umbridge. Her confession to deliberately torturing and maiming more than 100 children during her time at Hogwarts, and her lack of remorse and statements that the little mudbloods deserved it, saw her sentenced to Azkaban for life. Tom wouldn't have minded the death penalty for her too, but agreed somewhat that her actions didn't quite warrant it. It helped that, though the Dementors were gone, their aura lingered and probably would for another 100 years. He would suffer greatly before being allowed the release of death. She didn't have the constitution to stand up under that for long. It was still a death sentence, just a long, slow one. Since it was only mid-afternoon when the last trial was finished, Tom then tabled his proposal about how to handle Muggleborn who lived in the Muggle world. There was a long discussion, but in the end he got almost nothing that he had asked for. The point was made that everyone goes to and from the Muggle world regularly. Many people, even purebloods, did business with the Muggle world. They couldn't punish the Muggleborns living there if they weren't willing to do so with everyone who interacted with the Muggle world. The only thing he got out of his proposal was the harsher punishments for breaking the statute of secrecy. While he was furious over it, despite the good points that were raised, the fact that he just stormed out ended up helping his approval rating. It was the final proof that he had changed. Voldemort would have started throwing killing curses around until everyone agreed with him, or at least threatening people until they did. Instead, he lost, and he accepted it. He didn't like it, clearly, but no one liked losing. Yes, he could have handled it more graciously, but no one really cared about that. When given the choice between a politician that clamored for public opinion while doing nothing, and a visionary with an attitude who was actually putting his money where his mouth was, people would take the visionary every time. When Harry found out about the happenings, he was glad. Both that Umbridge and McNair were taken care of, and that Tom had lost the proposal about punishing the Muggleborns who chose to live in the Muggle world. While he did see Tom's point on the subject, he hadn't been sold on the solution. They were adults and should be able to make their own choices on where to live. As long as they kept the statute, that was the important thing. And hopefully at least most of them would return anyway, and it wasn't likely that a lot of them would leave anymore, so it would resolve itself. The next day, Harry got his owl results and ripped them open excitedly. He happened to be at the kennel that day having lunch with Sirius and Remus when they came. "Well, how do you do, pup?" Sirius asked impatiently. "I got an O in runes and an E in arithmancy," Harry told them. It was about what he'd expected. Runes was primarily memorization up until Newt levels, and with his occlumency enhanced memory, it had been easy. During 6th and 7th year was where they got into the more magical aspects of combining and powering them. He'd found that he had something of a knack for that, though. It came easily for him. He was sure that he could cope with the subject at Hogwarts. Arithmancy was a lot more difficult. It required calculations and complicated equations. It definitely wasn't his best subject. He was determined to get a Newt in it at least, even if that was as far as he would ever be able to go. It was too useful not to go that far. He just hoped he would pass the 6th year test to get into 7th year in it. Most of his studying lately was focused on that. He was putting in 20% runes, 20% refreshing other subjects, and the other 60% towards arithmancy. They congratulated him on his scores, and then Harry took that opportunity to talk to them about something else. He had decided to give up the pretense of living with his godfather. He'd been spending most nights with the twins anyway. "I'm going to move in with the twins," he told them. "I thought you did that already," Sirius teased. Harry gave him a playful shove. "You know what I mean. Fine, I see how it is. Just abandon your poor lonely godfather as soon as you get grown up." Remus snorted amusedly and shook his head. "It's okay, Sirius. I'll still be over here more often than not. My boyfriends are grown up enough to have jobs, you know." "Hey, what's that supposed to mean?" Sirius scowled playfully. "Just that I'm still in school, so not grown enough to have a job," Harry said innocently. Remus couldn't hold it in any more and burst into laughter. "That was the exact same innocent look your mother used to give when she was throwing one of us under the bus." "Why, Uncle Mooney, I don't know what you're talking about," Harry said sweetly, and then got hit in the head with a pillow from Sirius, which started a full-on pillow fight as all the cushions came off the couches and chairs. Once they were collapsed in exhaustion and had laughed themselves out, Harry asked, "You're not really upset about it, are you?" "No, pup," Sirius assured him. "Long as you don't forget about this old dog in the meantime." "Like I could ever do that." Harry grinned and pulled Sirius into a hug before giving the same assurance and hug to Remus before he went and packed up the last of his stuff that was still there and heading to the twins. Once Harry was gone, Remus told Sirius, "He might be right about one thing, though." "What's that?" Sirius asked. "Maybe you should think about getting a job. Get back out in the world, you know," Sirius smirked. "I'll have you know I already have a job lined up." "Oh, what's that?" "I'm not telling," Sirius said childishly and stuck his tongue out at Mooney. Remus snorted amusedly. "Fine, then I'm not telling you the job I have lined up." "Oh, come on, Mooney, please." Sirius went full begging puppy mode, and the rest of the day was spent with them, both trying to wear the other down, but neither getting anywhere. Chapter 59. That Friday, 2 weeks before Hogwarts was due to start, the letters finally went out. Most people had expected them to be late this year, though, with all the changes that had been advertised. Harry was shocked, though, when the head boy badge fell out of his letter, and he was just sitting there staring at it in amazement when the twins came in. "What's wrong, Harrikins?" Fred asked with a furrowed brow. "I'm head boy," Harry said as more of a question than an answer. "The horror!" George cried playfully. "We can't be seen dating a head boy, can we?" Fred joked, and thankfully Harry knew it was a joke. "What would that do to our reputation?" George added. Harry laughed and banished a pillow at them, but that was enough to snap him out of his shock. "I just can't believe that Snape made me head boy." While the heads of house chose the prefects, the head students were chosen by the headmaster. In reality, Snape had suffered greatly over the decision, but had to concede that it was the best option. It was ironic that after so long of mocking Harry for his fame, that fame was the very thing that he was counting on. The dark liked him for standing with them. The light liked him for being the boy who lived. He was the bridge between the two factions, and as divided as the school was likely to be during this difficult transition, making anyone else head boy would have been folly. That was the same reason that Susan Bones had been chosen as head girl. Her aunt was also a very public bridge between the factions, and she had the strength to stand up under the scrutiny. Now that they were over his selection as head boy, Harry actually looked at the book list and realized that they actually had gotten the main new classes through for this year. The book for wizarding studies he already had. Muggle Studies stated that the materials would be provided. He would need to pick up the book for critical thinking, though. There was a note with the list that there would be a limit of 10 classes for Newt students, including the 3 new required ones. The limit would be 12 for 3rd through 5th years, which still left them able to choose 2 electives. The 3rd through 5th years would go back down, though, once the 1-year and 2-year required classes were finished. They would still only be able to choose 2 or 3 electives. Harry marked his classes to take as, aside from the 3 new required ones, defense, transfiguration, charms, arithmancy, ancient runes, potions, and he waffled a bit over herbology or care of magical creatures before deciding on herbology. He wasn't sure if he wanted to be an Auror anymore, but he didn't want to lose the option which required herbology. He dropped history and divination after owls and had no problem dropping astronomy too. Dropping care hurt, though. He would have to talk to Hagrid personally when he got back to school and explain so the big guy wasn't hurt. The fact that Hagrid had stood with him after Dumbledore meant a lot. He sent off his class selections with a note that if he didn't pass the 6th-year tests for arithmancy and runes, he would pick care and astronomy back up. He still wanted the 7 newts even if the minimum was 3. The next morning, Harry went to do his school shopping. Sirius had wanted to come with him for sentiment's sake, and Harry had no objection, especially since there was no way the twins would be able to take off and come with him during the school shopping rush. Well, not unless they used the time turner anyway, and it was still secret that he had it, and they would certainly be spotted both running around the alley and in the shop, so that was out. Harry picked up all his books quickly, getting the books for care and astronomy just in case, and they moved on down the alley. He didn't need new school robes, since he'd already gotten them earlier in the summer when he got an entire wardrobe. He wasn't expecting another growth spurt, so he knew it would be safe, especially since he'd been eating well ever since the end of 4th year when he'd gotten Derby, so he didn't need to fill out at all either. After the bookstore, the next stop was to pick up parchment, ink, and some new spare quills. Then the warding supply store to get rune carving kits in wood and stone for use during the year. The last stop was the apothecary for potion supplies, and Harry went a little overboard there. Once he got good instruction in the subject, and his mother's potions journal, he was finding a real love for it. Just because he didn't have the capability to be a master didn't mean he couldn't enjoy brewing. In addition to the standard 7th-year kit that the apothecary organized for the students, Harry bought a good portion of ingredients for his own use. Since all the school shopping was done, they had one more stop to make, stocking up on pranks and fun stuff at the twins' shop. Harry got a few more linked journals just in case. He wasn't sure who he was going to give them to yet, since he'd gotten Neville one for his birthday, but at least he would have them on hand. He got a few boxes of skiving snack boxes despite being head boy and the fact that he was supposed to set a good example. He doubted he would use them much if at all, but it was nice to have them on hand. He also got a shield hat, headless hat, shield gloves, a few decoy detonators, some instant darkness powder, a purple pygmy puff, some whiz-bangs, a couple portable swamps for sentimental reasons, and forced himself to stop there. He could always owl order if he wanted something else, and he again talked the twins into letting him pay cost. It was one thing grabbing a few things here and there for free as part owner, but he didn't want the store losing money when he got a lot of stuff at once, and they had to pay for the materials at least even if the time was made negligible thanks to the time turner. Sirius had even more stuff than Harry did, but the twins let Sirius pay, which caused quite a bit of joking and teasing back and forth before the twins had to get back for the rush. When September first came along, Harry almost didn't go. The twins were taking the morning off to see him off on the train since it was their slowest time anyway, which meant he woke up in their arms and never wanted to leave. He would be away from them for most of the next 10 months, and he hated it. It wasn't until they promised to sneak into the school once a week and use the time turner to spend a whole day with him that he agreed to go. With his 7-compartment trunk, he could easily take everything he owned with him, but didn't. He wanted to leave something of himself here too, so he only took what he needed, leaving most of his non-school books in the 3rd bedroom that had been turned into a library. The 2nd bedroom had become an office and small workroom. The big workroom and potions lab was downstairs. He also left a lot of his clothes, having way more than he would need at Hogwarts with wearing the uniform most of the time. He had packed the night before, though, so they were free to laze around for a while and have a nice leisurely brunch before they had to go. Like with the school shopping, Sirius wanted to see him off too. It would be the first and only time he would get the chance. Other than breaks, of course, but that wasn't the same. They got there early to allow for long goodbyes. That was also the first confirmation anyone got as to the relationship between Harry and the twins. Most of the people at Bill and Fleur's wedding had been older and not prone to gossiping. A lot of people suspecting with how often Harry was seen at the shop, talking with them, and rumors had abounded. But no one actually knew it had been a busy summer, and with everything going on, none of them had wanted to deal with the circus it would have become if they'd had public dates. It was something they certainly planned to do going forward, though now that things had died down a bit. Once he had thoroughly snogged his boyfriends and hugged his godfather tightly, he got on the train just before the 5-minute whistle. He found Neville and Luna and dropped his stuff off in their compartment before heading for the prefect meeting that he and the head girl would be running. He had already let them know through the journals that he was the head boy, and they'd arranged which compartment to meet in. Harry felt a little bad that he almost never used Hedwig anymore, but she didn't seem to complain, especially since she wasn't stuck in the cage or even on a perch indoors. He let her fly as she wished. Due to their bond, she was always there the rare times he needed to send a letter, so that was what mattered, and he made sure to shower her with affection and treats when she was. Chapter 60. Walking into the great hall made the changes obvious. There were now 2 tiers at the front for the teachers' tables and an occupied chair at the end of each house table. It seemed the new heads of houses would be sitting with the houses. He didn't recognize any of them, though. He also noticed another, smaller table off to one side of the expanded hall that already had some kids sitting there, younger than first years. This long perusal and taking in all the changes meant that it was quite a while before he noticed both Sirius and Remus sitting at the lower head table and waving at him before turning to glare at each other. He laughed and waved back just as the first years were led in. There were more than usual, but he'd expected as much. There were only a few saved Muggle-borns in this group, but there were also a lot of children who otherwise wouldn't have been able to come for financial reasons that the founders' vaults had funded. After some conversation between Tom and Harry, they decided to only do so for first years. Upper years would probably struggle to catch up. The older ones were advised to get tutors, and their tutors could sign off on them applying next year if they were ready. Far too many kids that didn't come to Hogwarts got little to no education at all. So as to make it fair and not put a lot of onus on others for exceptions, even the ones that had been adequately homeschooled would have to have tutors to ensure that they were at Hogwarts standards. The sorting took quite a while, and Snape immediately called for the feast once it was finished. After dessert was served, Snape stood to make announcements. Since there are a great many announcements to make, and it is rather late already, we will not be doing very many this evening. Tomorrow morning, everyone is required to be in the Great Hall at 8 a.m. for breakfast, after which there will be information provided on everything you need to know. For tonight, allow me introduce your new heads of house. Each of them stood up and waved at their students when their names were announced. Snape had one last thing to say before releasing the students for the night. On each bed in your dorms, you will all find a student handbook. You will have 1 week to familiarize yourselves with the entire thing, but you will at least familiarize yourself with the student code of conduct this evening. You will be held to that from the moment you step out of your dorms in the morning. He gave that a moment to sink in before dismissing everyone. Harry settled in the private head boy's suite and quickly pulled out his mirror to call both Sirius and Remus. Not only did he want to do this face to face, but the journals would only allow him to talk to one at a time, and conversation between 3 people got difficult. The mirrors could be split screen. "How could you not tell me you'd be here?" he accused as soon as both of them answered. "It was a surprise," Sirius grinned. "It was a surprise from each other too, apparently," Remus grumbled, but the amusement was clear in his eyes. "You're kidding," Harry said incredulously. "You live in the same house, spend almost every moment together, and didn't know you both had the same job." We're apparently very good at keeping secrets, Sirius laughed. I just can't believe that Snape hired us, Remus said with a shake of his head. Him he might could understand, but Sirius baffled the mind, though they had become something like friends since Dumbledore's death. The sincere apology and explanation from Sirius had gone a long way towards easing the animosity, though Snape had kept up appearances at least. The final break came after Harry told Sirius and Remus everything, and they both assured Snape that they had no idea about the love potion and never would have condoned it if they had. Snape found it a lot easier to put things in the past after that. I can't believe he made me head boy either, Harry pointed out. I think he's getting senile in his old age, Sirius joked. Hey, maybe there's a curse on the headmaster position too. The three of them didn't talk for long since it was late, and everyone had to be up early the next morning. As the students filed into the hall, the heads of house were arranging them in year order around the table. First years were next to the head of house, at the end of the table, nearest the teachers, through the seventh years at the back of the hall. Once everyone was seated, breakfast was served. Conversation during the meal was filled with speculation over what the announcements would include and a wide range of opinions on the student code of conduct. Harry had flipped through the entire handbook, but only read that part in depth before going to sleep. Once Snape noticed that at least most people were finished eating, he stood and called for silence. He began by introducing the new teachers, telling what subjects and years they would be teaching. Remus was teaching first through third year's defense, Sirius was teaching fourth and fifth years, and Kingsley was teaching sixth and seventh years. Harry was a little disappointed that he wouldn't have classes with Sirius or Remus, but it had probably been arranged that way on purpose to avoid the appearance of favoritism. Once the teachers had been introduced, Snape moved on to the most important issue. I trust that you have all by now read and understand your student code of conduct. The punishment stated will apply equally to all students regardless of house or any other factors. The only excuse for breaking the rules will be if it was necessary to prevent imminent bodily harm to yourself or others. By imminent, I mean actually happening, not simply being threatened. Anyone who claims such a defense that is proven to be lying will have their punishment doubled, and I assure you, investigations will be made. He sent a serious look around all the house tables. The times of bullying, violence, and even sexual assault being treated as a lark are over. Claims will be investigated, wands will be checked, and if serious enough auras will be called. Anyone experiencing bullying or mistreatment of any kind are urged to report it to your heads of house. You will be listened to, and the situation will be resolved. Your heads of house have no other job but to be there for you and help you. They will be doing head counts every evening at curfew. There will be weekly house meetings, and they will be meeting with you individually as well. They are your resource for any problems you may have, even if that problem is with a teacher. Those of you who perused more of your handbooks will have noticed that there is also a code of conduct for teachers. This is provided to you so that you will know what behaviors to expect from your teachers and what lines they are not to cross. Should they do so, you will report that to your heads of house as well. Should your heads of house be the problem, you can come directly to me. I may not be a nice man, I will not dry your tears or give meaningless platitudes, but I will listen. I will get to the bottom of the situation. I will take whatever action is necessary for all students in this school to have a safe and pleasant learning environment. Should you need to speak with me, announce yourself to the gargoyle, and I will be notified. If you are not let up within a few minutes, and it is not an emergency, I will contact you when I have the time for a meeting. If it is an emergency, you will go to either a head of house or Madame Pomfrey in the infirmary, and they will be able to contact me if needed. He paused to take a drink before continuing. Prefects and head students will familiarize yourself with the standard points and detention offenses before taking such actions. Your points and detentions will be reviewed each day by the heads of house. Should they be found erroneous or outside the guidelines, they will be adjusted as necessary, and depending on the severity or frequency of infractions, you could see yourself losing your badge. Abuse of authority will not be tolerated, here or in the world outside these walls. The children on campus who are not students are the children of your teachers, and they are to be treated with kindness and respect when you are in a position to interact with them. To bully children close to your age is wrong. To bully children younger than you is despicable. Should you do so, you will find yourself at the least suspended and at worst expelled. While ideally they should be supervised when out in the school, there may come a time when they are not. Should you find a young child unsupervised, you should guide them kindly to the nearest staff member who will see to it that they find their way back where they are supposed to be. The spouses of your teachers will also be in residence. While they do not have the ability to give or take points or assign detentions, they can and will report you to those who can, so I would advise treating them the way you would your teachers.